I'm on nights tonight, not happy about it. So let's go on a mental health walk. Let's go. If we haven't met before, then hi, my name is Surina. I am a core surgical trainee. I'm coming up to the end of my 2 years of CST. And 2 years ago, I thought I was starting surgical training, but my God, it has been a whole life training, let me tell you. I've learnt about surgery and how to operate, of course, as expected. All right, it's not even sunny, I just look so stupid with these sunglasses. But the way I've changed as a person in terms of my confidence and attitudes towards goals and how it's changed my relationships and how I feel about myself and so many other things that I wasn't really expecting to learn on a surgical training program, I thought I would take you guys on a walk with me and share some of those thoughts. I think the best way to explain how my 2 years went would be with the Dunning-Kruger curve. If you're not familiar with it, it's basically a graph that shows the relationship between what you know and your confidence. So initially, you don't even know what you don't know, and you are chilling up on Mount Stupid with unconscious incompetence. It slowly dawns on you how much you don't know, and your confidence absolutely plummets and you fall down the valley of despair. After a while, you finally start to gain a bit of expertise, gain a bit of confidence alongside it, and you slowly creep up the slope of enlightenment before you kind of have, mastered everything you can or reached the ceiling of that stage or that thing that you need to learn, and you start to plateau at the end. And I've known about this curve thing for a while, but never has it so intimately related to my life. So let me quickly take you through the stages of my training as they relate to different parts of this curve. So I'd say I was chilling up on Mount Stupid for quite a while, probably the first 6 months of my training. I started on a urology job, and I truly now can see how little I knew then. I came into surgical training thinking, right, I just need to learn how to operate. And it was so much more than that. I have actually documented a fair part of this period of my training on YouTube already. I think it was at that time I was feeling the most confused and out of my depth, and so naturally wanted to reflect and share the journey. I always want to share the good parts and the not so good parts, because I think it's an incredible career, but it is really difficult, and it's not always difficult in the ways that you expect. I thought it would be technically difficult, and stepping up to take responsibility or more responsibility than before would be the difficult part. But it's not just about the things you need to learn, it's also how you need to manage yourself and how you need to be a trainee. In my earlier videos on this channel, I've talked about how difficult I found it to understand. Oh, dog. Way too many dogs that wanted to play, and I had to do the right thing and play with them. So what was I saying? Yeah, so a large part of my first 6 months were really about learning how to be a surgical trainee. And it sounds obvious now, but realising that getting my surgical training was very much my responsibility. I had a lot of internal and external conflict about staying in my comfort zone and being there for my peers, for the non-surgical trainees on the ward, and tearing away from that and finding training opportunities in theatre. And I felt really torn between the two, and it was very much up to me to balance that. And I think the balance tipped in the wrong direction for most of those first 6 months. Firstly, I was trying to stay in my comfort zone, subconsciously or consciously. And secondly, working in medicine in the hospital, it's very much a team game, and you do get quite close to your teams, and you're trying to achieve things as a group. Sometimes surgical training can feel a bit of an individual game that you're playing, that you have to look out for your needs and you have to seek out your training opportunities. And a big learning point for me in the first 6 months was that is okay, that is what's required of you to be a surgical trainee. If you don't learn how to operate today, then who's going to be doing the operating tomorrow? Right, that is your responsibility. And so a lot of my feedback in the first 6 months reflected this, that I wasn't spending enough time in theatre and my surgical skills weren't really up to where they should be. And this was obviously horrible to take in, but there's no point being so self-critical and destructive. You're not going to learn anything, you're not going to move forward. You have to take all the feedback you can get in surgery and realize how incredibly valuable and useful it is, because it's the only way you're going to get better. And so then I started my next 6 months in general surgery, and so began the devastating but necessary plummet from Mount Stupid into the Valley of Despair. And from where I was, deep down in the Valley of Despair, I found being in theatre an incredibly difficult experience. And I fell into this really unhelpful cycle of being so frustrated at myself. I don't know about you, but I think if you're the kind of person who's found themselves in an environment like surgical training, then you're probably quite used to, having quite high expectations of yourself. And I realised I was comparing my, tens of hours of surgical training with someone else's thousands of hours. I operated with this consultant once, and there was a bit of unexpected bleeding, and she was operating, I was assisting. So I was just sort of quietly panicking in the corner, wondering what to do next. And she dealt with it, and it was all fine. She told me, before that even happened, she already had a plan A, B, C, and D of what to do if that eventuality occurred, because it's not the first time she's done this. It's not the first time she's seen this. When you're watching someone who has mastered something, you are watching the product of thousands and thousands of hours of experience, having been in every situation that you've probably not even thought about yet. They've probably experienced multiple times and have already got multiple plans of how to get out of it or how to deal with it. But it's really, really hard to see that journey when you've not witnessed it. You've just turned up on this one day on this one list. And I've referenced this really useful Reddit thread, actually, which I'll put on the screen now, which basically articulates so well that surgery is hard. It's not a natural skill that anyone is born doing or being naturally good at. The thing that defines the really excellent surgeons are the people who just show up again and again, and that is the only way to master this skill, is just to keep showing up and not being scared of not knowing what you don't know. I think I started the first 6 months really scared and really unsure of myself, and then I realised the only way to get better was to put myself forward and do it. And I think a lot of us feel this imposter syndrome when we're in environments and situations that we're not comfortable in, that we know we don't have all the answers for, and that can very easily make you default to then not doing the thing, and then you get stuck in this cycle of not making any progress, not learning, and getting in your own way. But I've come to realise that imposter syndrome is a very good thing. If you're someone who wants to develop, then you really should be experiencing imposter syndrome as much as possible, because then you know you're in an environment where you've got so much to learn. Really lean into that, embrace it, and just put your hands up and say, I don't know how to do that, teach me, can you show me? Why do you do it like that? If that didn't work, what would be your other plan? I have been walking around this field in circles for a bit too long, so let me find another little path to carry on this chat. Another important lesson I learned while I was in the Valley of Despair was during a night shift, we were called to a trauma call where a patient had been involved in a car accident, and because of the impact they had some blood in and around their lungs. That can affect how you breathe, make it difficult to breathe, and so you need to put a chest drain in to allow that blood to escape and allow the lungs to work properly again. Putting a chest drain in is a competency you need to learn as a surgical trainee. Trauma calls can be really chaotic and stressful. Loads of different teams and different specialities turn up in the emergency department, and in this case a decision was made that this patient needed a chest drain, and all these different teams are standing around the patient, staring at you, the surgical team, asking you to just go and do it. And it's really scary because you basically just have to take a knife, make a cut on the chest, find your way to the outside of the lungs and shove a drain in. And my registrar was looking at me like, so do you want to do it? I'd practiced it on models before and I knew the theory behind it, but I'd never done it in real life. And at that moment, at 3 a.m, with all the chaos and loudness around me, I realised that I had to say yes and be confident about it, even though internally I was not feeling confident at all. But the thing with surgery is the only way you learn is by doing. I think we're often hesitant to be externally confident about something, women especially, until we're absolutely sure that we can do it. But a lesson I've learned is that your external confidence has to precede or come before when you actually start feeling confident internally, because people really respond to your body language, the way you're speaking, the way you're coming across, and will give you more to do if you're coming across more authoritative and more sure of yourself, even if that's not how you feel inside. You have to project that if you want to be given learning opportunities, if you want to be trusted with things. Something that really reminded me of this randomly was watching one of the England women's games recently. They were playing Sweden and it went down to penalties. And one of the players, I'll have to look up her name, I'll put it on the screen now, the confidence with which she approached the penalty, the way she walked up to the ball, the way she placed it, she was smiling, she was sure of herself, she was acting like it was already in. Just as a spectator watching her, you had full faith that that goal was going to go in. It was so different to the ones before where people were looking down and not sure of themselves. And that's what I mean about confidence preceding the fact. I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where you trust yourself, people around you trust you, and that energy and that mindset will actually get you to where you want to go. And so then finally came the slow ascent up the slope of enlightenment, which probably has occurred over the last final 6 months of my core surgical training. And that all started with acceptance. Acceptance that this is going to take time. This is going to take an entire lifetime. I'm watching my consultants learn things. I'm watching my juniors learn things, completely, wildly different things, but there is always more to learn. There are new techniques to do something. There may be something you've done multiple times before, but then you do a difficult version of it and you're just continually humbled. And all of this takes time, and that is fine. I think in a world of next day delivery and being able to get what you want with clicks and swipes, all from, not even moving off your sofa, we've become very used to instant gratification. We've become very used to speed and convenience. Most of the things that make life worth living, learning a new skill, working on a relationship, building something you're passionate about, all of these things do take time, and there is nothing you can replace the time with. But the time is what makes it so meaningful. The messiness, the mistakes, the figuring stuff out, the realizations, that's the kind of stuff that makes me really hopeful for the future, because it's something that I don't think technology or AI can replicate. The imperfections and the messiness is the experience, and so that makes me very excited rather than frustrated like it used to. But also acceptance of myself and my style of learning. All my initial feedback did say that I was a little bit slow figuring things out, figuring out my role as a trainee, which is completely valid. And initially I was worrying about, what's wrong with me? Why am I not getting it? But that is me. It takes me a while to figure things out. But when I do, then I go all in and just get addicted to that feeling of progress. Hi, it's okay, don't worry. I don't mind. Aww. Stopped recording for a minute and I got absolutely devoured by these two dogs. Like, their tongues were on my face. I don't know how I felt about it. Right, I have to move from here, otherwise I'm going to keep forgetting what I'm talking about. Another useful lesson I've learnt in accepting myself is realising you don't need to change yourself into who you think you need to be or what kind of personality you think suits a certain environment. You can enhance personality qualities that you already have. And I realised this when a patient said something to me recently. They said, what did they say? They said, you've got a very calm but authoritative voice and it makes me trust you. And as a small brown woman in the environment that I am in, I feel like I sometimes have to try even harder, and it's even more important for me to make sure that I'm taken seriously and seen to be authoritative. But that doesn't always mean being the loudest in the room or puffing your chest out the most or sharpening your elbows and, being not nice to other people, which a lot of people can be like that, especially in these kind of environments. But you don't need to be to succeed. There's a lot to be said for being quietly powerful or softly ambitious. Phrases that you wouldn't really associate with environments like surgery, but absolutely have a place in it. What that's looked like for me is, for example, on a recent theatre list, it's taken me almost 2 years to build up the courage to do this, but I finally just sat down and asked my consultant if there was certain bits of cases that I could do and certain operations that I could do in that day's lists. And I don't know why it's so scary to ask and why it took me so long to build up the courage to do so, but the consultant congratulated me on being so forthcoming and so direct with what my needs were and what I wanted to get out of that list. And I think when you stand up for yourself in a way that is calm, respectful and confident and not pushy or moany or by putting other people down, people really gain more respect for you. And it's perfectly possible for people like that to succeed in a world filled with lots of loud voices. They were talking about this in a podcast that I really enjoy called It's Always Sunny in Surgery, hosted by two surgical trainees. And they were talking about how they both don't necessarily fit the big surgical personality, but how they don't feel that's necessary in today's day and age. And I completely agree. Don't be trying to fit into stereotypical molds that already exist in certain industries, whatever you're doing. So where am I at now and where am I going? Well, I think I definitely am approaching the plateau of stability now that I'm at the end of my SHO years, and I feel really ready to start registrar training. I mean, make no mistake, Dunning-Kruger is going to strike again. I can just see the next valley of despair ahead of me, and I just know I'm about to fall down it, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's going to be a whole new set of things to learn, a whole new responsibility to step up to. But I'm excited. I was thinking back to where I started a couple of years ago, not sure if I wanted to do medicine, not sure if I wanted to carry on. And whilst there's a lot of things I value, like financial freedom and autonomy, which a career in medicine and in surgery just doesn't give you, there's something so addictive and enticing about it that I know it's probably going to be part of my life forever. My camera had clearly had enough of me yapping and ran out of battery, and I'm sure you have too. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.